right, so today we're going to look at one of the, I guess you can call it a significant development in handguns. This is the CZ Model 75, and yes, it was invented, designed back in 1975. And at the time, this is what was called a Wonder Nine. All right, if you go back and look at a little bit of history, 1975, U.S. law enforcement, everybody's using revolvers. If you look at U.S. military, we were still using the 1911. All right, there were 9mm pistols, obviously, long before this was made. You had, the Browning High Power, which was a single action but double stack, we called a high capacity magazine. You had the Smith & Wesson 39, again, but that was a single stack. Held 8 or 9 rounds. With the CZ75, we had the double stack magazine, we had the double action trigger pull, and single action also. But when this came out in 1975, it was a Wonder 9. Let's see what made it so wonderful. All right, so let's take a look and see what made this a Wonder 9. All right, for one, we had that double stack magazine. All right, so we had twice the capacity of, say, your 1911. So instead of having 7 rounds, now I've got 13, 14 rounds. That's awesome. And we had a double action trigger. So with my hammer down, safety off, I could pull this gun. If I had a round chambered, say we're on half cock for safety. All right, we'll drop it down. Now you see that it's empty. All right, so if I had a 1911, I'd have to manually cock this and then fire it. If I had a Browning High Power, I have to manually cock it and then fire it. But with this CZ75, all I had to do was squeeze the trigger. All right, so there, that double action trigger. And every round after, the hammer would already be cocked, in this semi-automatic mode. Then it became a single action trigger. And it has a really nice trigger for the double action pistol. Okay. The other thing, if I was in law enforcement and I wanted to carry this, all right, I could have that on half, put a round, I could chamber a round, put it on, drop it to half cock. Now, when I pulled my gun from my holster, if I saw bad guys, all I had to do was squeeze the trigger. Don't have to worry about the safety. All right. The other way I could carry it is if a round chambered, hammer cocked, then I can put the safety on. All right. Now, when I pulled it, all I do is drop the safety and squeeze it in the single action mode. So, it gave you some options on how you wanted to carry your pistol. A lot more options than you would have with like a single action only. But that's one of the things that made it the Wonder 9. High capacity, double action, had pretty nice sights, and it's 9mm, so it's going to function, it's going to feed, it's going to be reliable. Very, very common round with that, the NATO, even the Warsaw Pact, I believe, used the 9mm. This one says right on the side, made in Czechoslovakia. If you're paying attention to world issues, there is no Czechoslovakia anymore. It's now the Czech Republic. But back then, this was made in Czechoslovakia. Something kind of nice about this is a CZ Model 75. There is no safety. There's nothing covering up that hammer. If you look, I'm sorry, the hammer. That firing pin. The hammer's going to strike that. There's no block on here. So later models, the 75B, had that hammer block. Had a hammer block safety. That's where the B came from. So this is kind of an earlier one. And how much earlier, you're asking? Let's go look on the other side, because printed right here, the date is date of manufacture. That's 1987. So this is a late 80s model. In 1990, I believe, is when they went to or early 90s when they went to that 75B. But this is a kind of a later early model. How's that? Does that make sense? A later early model? Later model? Later early model. One of those two. All right. Let's take a look, see how to field strip this thing. All right, when we're getting ready to field strip it, you'll see we've got we go ahead and we'll drop that magazine. Drop the magazine out of it. We've got our hammer cocked. It doesn't need to be cocked. You'll see here in the back of the slide, on the back of the receiver, there's these two little the tick marks here. These are orientation marks. We have to move that slide back to those marks line up. Then once they're lined up, we'll hold it in place, kind of squeeze it, and we have to push. If you look on what will be the right side of the pistol, that slide release really sticks out. Really, there's a big lump there, kind of raised up. I don't know if you can see that. I'll get a close up of it. There, you see how it's raised up. All right, so we'd line up those two tick marks and push with your finger. Push hard as you can on that slide release. And ow, that kind of hurts. Look at the dent it leaves. That's painful. All right, so we don't want to be painful. We don't want to hurt ourselves. We'll line those two up. Let's see if we can do this right. We'll line those two up. Then we're just going to push on that slide release with the base of our magazine. So we'll push on that, get a good grip on that magazine. We push it out, and you see how it's now raised up. We can take the toe of the magazine, that little round part, and just pry that right out. Look at that. So our slide release is now out by using our magazine. Now we'll just push this whole slide forward. Comes right out the front end of the gun. So there's our, ooh, look at that. Not too bad, a little oily, a little dirty. Not too bad, we clean that up. So we'll set this aside for now. We can take our mainspring here, just kind of push against the guide rod. The whole thing's gonna lift out. There's now our guide rod and our mainspring. We'll set that down. And then that barrel just lifts out, and you see the locking lugs on the barrel. So this has that same kind of no pin. It locks up just like a Browning high power would. We got those barrel lugs, and the barrel's looking pretty decent. Now we've got our slide, and that's about as far as we would normally go for cleaning and oiling. I don't know if we'll go much farther today, but that would be your field strip right there. All right, so I'm just taking a couple of patches, and I'm just with my finger. I'm not really doing a good job with this. I'm just kind of cleaning those the slide rail, and you'll notice on the CZ75 the rail for the slide goes inside in between the receiver, whereas with a lot of pistols you'll see how the slide will go outside of the receiver. This actually goes inside, so when you're putting her back together, you kind of got to orient it that way. But a little bit minor differences. We're just going to give this a little shot with some CLP. What was that? CLP, clean, lubricate, and protect. How about that? It does everything. Just to give a little shot. That's way too much. Got to have good trigger control. We'll mop up some of this extra. We'll clean that up a little bit. Don't want it too oily. Don't want it leaking all over the place. But I'll go through lots and lots of patches. But we got that lubed up. So we're going to put this all back together. We're going to drop our barrel in, and remember those lugs. We just want to make sure the lugs engage with the grooves on the slide. So that's engaged. We've got our guide rod and our mainspring here all oiled up and cleaned. We're going to insert that back into place, and just controlling this spring so it doesn't jump out at us. Just going to push that guide rod down so it just engages there at that barrel lug. And there's a little dimple. There's a little dimple on top of the rod, and a little dimple into that barrel recess. So make sure those two fit together just the way they're supposed to. And then we'll slide this back on. And remember, like I said, the pistol frame goes outside of the slide. So we'll get that all lined up. We'll push it right back to, remember those two tick marks? We'll get those lined up, and we'll push our slide release back into place. And this is going to take a little bit of effort. Just kind of, let's see, we have to push quite aggressively. Whoop. There we go. And now we're back into business. All right, I ran a brush down the bore, and I oiled up the bore a little bit off camera, and got some cleaning patches here. But there's our safety, and we can drop that. All right, and we do have the double action. So real sweet to field strip, reassemble. Kind of nice. One of the guns, just seems to fit my hand. I've got ridiculously big hands, you guys have probably noticed looking at my videos, but this seems to just fit me. It's empty mag. But that little bit of finger, look at that. Just, if you have big hands, you're going to find the CZ, there's that little swell here and little swell in the front. Just seems to fill your hand just about perfectly. Yeah. Nice. But real easy to maintain. Like most law enforcement, most military weapons, they're easy to strip, easy to clean, easy to maintain. That's part of the design. And with this finish, it's almost like an enamel. It's not blued. It's way before Cerakote or any of those nice cool finishes. Like I said, it's almost like an enamel finish. There's a couple chips in this one too. But overall, condition on this is probably 99, 98%. Really, really nice gun for being, what was I say, made in 1987. So it's older than probably some of the people watching the video. But fun little gun. Not gonna do any shooting today. It's raining outside and it's pouring out, so we're not gonna do any shooting today. But CZ75 really known for its accuracy. All right, we got it all put back together. Let's take this one home. All right, this CZ75, you can still pick these up on the surplus market. A lot of them were, law enforcement turn-ins. This is probably the most popular gun in Czechoslovakia. And believe it or not, they're one of the most popular sports in Czechoslovakia is shooting. So there's some competition models out there too, with threaded barrel and sights and tuned up. This is just the bare bones early edition of that CZ75. And like I said, it's the pre-B, so it doesn't have that firing pin block. But if you get a chance to pick one of these up and see how it fits in your hand, if you've got big hands, oh my goodness, this just seems to fit perfectly. I don't have enough good things to say about it. It is a nice shooter. It is real accurate. We didn't get a chance to go shoot it today because I'm in Western Oregon and it's raining. It's what it does here. So you can't go shoot every day. Need to move to Texas. But fun little gun. If you can pick one up, it would make a decent carry gun. They're not too big, and like I said, it is a high cap 9mm. So I don't see a downside to this little sweetheart. And it's like I said, you can pick them up on the surplus market for fairly cheap. $600-800 somewhere in that area. But CZ75, nothing but good things.